Hello and welcome to this video of presentation of Sparnatural, a visual Sparkle query builder and exploration tool for knowledge graphs. I'm Thomas Francard from the company Sparna, and I'm going to demonstrate how Sparnatural works, how it can be configured, and how it has been used in the two demonstrators for the French National Archives and the French National Library in 2022. Let's start right away with an example of how the thing works. So here is a page of the French National Archive demonstrator showing Sparnatural in action. So this is this visual component that allows to browse a knowledge graph. So as a user, you see I'm presented with a list of the possible type of entities that are available in the graph, and I can start writing a query pattern, like searching for records that are related to, and you see I'm selecting the object type before selecting the predicate. So records related to a person, for example, and the two possible links here are the provenance and the subject. So let's select provenance. So I'm searching for all the records who have a provenance, a certain person, and instead of selecting a person in a drop-down list, which takes a while to do because there's a lot of them, I'm going to search for a person with another criteria. So here I'm traversing the graph, and I want that person to be a member of a certain organization. For example, let's pick this one. And I would like my record to have a digital copy, a digital surrogate, like any value is okay for me. And I can run that query, and I have 400 results, and I have the title of the archives as well as the link to the digital copy. And by the way, I can make that digital copy criteria optional because not all of them have a digital copy. So I'm activating the optional switch here, and you see I get more results, much more results with the digital copy, sometimes filled in, sometimes not. We can of course have a look at the corresponding Sparkle query, which is displayed there. So you see that's the technical query corresponding to what I've described here. Searching for an archive which has a provenance of person, the person is of type person, and is linked through a property path, and I come back to that in the configuration, to a certain organization. And optionally, I want the record to have a digital copy. And I'm also fetching the label automatically of the record to be displayed. So you see how we can very easily build a Sparkle query. I can, for example, add another criteria here for dates to show how dates can be used using calendar selection here. Here would be only interested in year range, like in the 19th century, for example. And so here I have another criteria, and I can re-execute the query, getting a little less results here. So that's how Sparnatural is configured here to query that Sparkle endpoint actually. So queries are sent there. The important aspect of Sparnatural is that it's purely client-side. So it sends the query there, gets the query results and display them using this YASQUI component below it. So this is not Sparnatural. Sparnatural is only the Sparkle query builder here. What I haven't shown here is the ability to control the result columns here. So here you see I have two results column. One by default is called this. This is the one. This is the first item of my query pattern, and this is the digital copy, and I can rename the column. I can change the sort order also here, And in order to select other columns, then I need to click on the eye icon on the arrow here. So if I'm interested in the date, also the archive, then I can click here and I'll get the date coming here. Which is a kind of special case here because the archives can have either begin date and end date, date range, or they can have an exact date range. So there's a mechanism to select all of these three possibilities. So that's for the demonstrator of the French National Archive. This is the one for the French National Library. So you see, it's the same visual aspect, except it's configured differently, and we'll see in a minute how this is configured. This is multilingual, and here I'm presented with a configuration in French, so let me switch to English. Here, so you see the labels will change to English, and here I can search, for example, for an edition of a work where the work has an author, which is Victor Hugo. So here you see I'm selecting the value through an autocomplete search field. So Victor Hugo, and I want all the edition in English. So I'm selecting the language code here from the drop down. And I can run that query and get the 22 results known in the French National Library about the translation of Victor Hugo work in English, and maybe I can add the title of this edition as another column so that I can have something to display to the users. Here again, here's the corresponding Sparkle query manifestation that manifests a work, and that work has a creator, which is the URI of Victor Hugo, and the edition has a certain language here and a certain title. So you see how the visual pattern, the visual aspect displays the actual underlying Sparkle query. And here the queries are sent to the live Sparkle endpoint in the official Sparkle endpoint of the BNF, which is data.bnf.org/Sparkle. So hopefully you get an idea of what Sparnatural does and how it works. Now I'd like to focus on how it's being configured. Because you see in those two demonstrators, the configuration was different, although the component is the same. And the configuration of Sparnatural is done through an ontology. This is an ontology-based configuration, and that ontology specifies the type of entities and the relationship between the entities that are displayed to the users, and also, very importantly, how these entities and relationship that we present are mapped to the underlying knowledge graph structure. So that's an example of the configuration ontology for the French National Archive demonstrator. So this one, the first one I showed you. And you can see here the classes that are available in the configuration are declared here. And if I take the archive entry, which corresponds to this one here, and you see the tooltip displayed here, and you see the configuration, you have the labels displayed to the user, label in French, label in English. That's the tooltip we just saw in French and in English too. The order in which that would be displayed in the drop-down list. The code for the icon, which we take from the Font Awesome icon library. And here you see an additional configuration called default label property. This is used when we're selecting the records here and through the eye, then automatically Sparnatural will insert an additional line to go and fetch that property to be able to have the label of the thing and not only the URI. And so that's the default label property, and whenever it's configured, then automatically an additional line in the Sparkle query will be inserted. So that's for the classes, and then we have the properties, which are all configured in the object properties tab of Protégé. And you see that configuration ontology relies on the, or imports rather, two ontologies provided by Sparnatural. One is for the core configuration and one is for the data sources. I'm going to show you briefly the data sources after that. And so we see here the base structure for the configuration with the Sparnatural property, under which you have different subset of properties corresponding to the widgets with which the properties are configured. And you see here the for example, the list property, so all the properties for which a drop-down list will be displayed, autocomplete property, properties for which an autocomplete field, search field will be displayed, and we have the time property, so either at the date granularity or a year granularity. So this is typically the one we use to select the date range for the archive records. And on the properties, we also have the label configured, the domain and the range to which that property is associated. So here this is relating an organization to a person. This is the has member link, so which is displayed like so. So this is organization, person, has member. So this is what we're seeing here. It says it's a list property, so that's why we see this drop-down list here. And very importantly, it is mapped to a certain Sparkle property path. This property does not correspond one-to-one to a triple in the underlying graph. It corresponds to a complete property path here, because in the underlying ontology, which is based on the records in context ontology, there's an intermediate node to describe the membership between a person and an organization. But we don't want to display that intermediate node to the end user, because we judge it's too complicated. We just want to display a direct link between the organization and the person. So this is generating a path to traverse the groupie source of membership relation and then the membership relation as target. And this is what we see if we generate the query here. You will see this property path inserted here. So in effect, Sparnatural first generates a query based on the ontology with which it was configured, and we can actually see that that query if I can open the dev panel here. We'll see it in the dev panel here. Yeah, so here you see the raw Sparkle query before these property paths are being applied, and so you see there's the URI appur norm has member, which corresponds to the URI of that specific property here, which has then been replaced by the full property path to generate the complete and the final Sparkle query here. So kind of similar to backward chaining inference. Another aspect of the configuration is the data source. So the list properties and the autocomplete properties can be associated to Sparkle data sources that will define how the drop-down list here is populated. And so if I click on that, then I will see here's the Sparkle query that drives how the drop-down list is being populated in combination with the parameter here for the certain variable that is injected in the query pattern. So this is basically telling us we're searching for the RDFS label, and this will be replaced here in the Sparkle query pattern. And we have the language filtering here, the ordering clause and the limit clause. So you see how this configuration also drives how the content of the list and also the content of the behavior of the autocomplete search field can be configured. So we're reaching the end of this presentation. One last thing maybe I haven't showed are these example queries. So Sparnatural relies on an internal query data structure, allowing it to load preloaded or pre-configured query directly. So here, for example, let me show it here in the French National Archive demonstrator. So we have all the records about Jean-Baptiste Poquelin, which is Molière. So you see I can select the query, loads directly here, or the inventories after death of Goldsmith in the 17th century, a little bit more complex. And so you see how it's directly loaded, and it can serve as a query template for user to adapt. That's also an interesting feature for data providers wanting to showcase the kind of queries that are available in their graph. Okay, so thanks for watching. If you want to know more, then make sure you go to the sparnatural.eu website, where you see more demos, linked to bibliography, and especially all the presentation of this project with the French National Library and French National Archive. And the link to the source code. I haven't mentioned that Sparnatural is open source. This is LGPL, and so you will find the link to the GitHub repository here from the website, and so you can test for yourself and adapt one of the demo pages if you want to give it a try. Thanks for watching, and see you soon on Sparnatural.eu website. Bye.